Hello. I'm fresh out of the shower into the car here for a very special video. Semi-seriously, I think this is going to be a valuable car vid for many of you who are into specifically affirming and what we call robotic affirming, Sammy Ingram style affirming, where like you're affirming something over and over again. I think this will be a valuable video for people who are into that, and also people who are into the idea or are into doing mental diets, specifically Emmet Fox style mental diets, because we're going to connect the two today. And it's a connection that many of you have probably already made in some ways, but maybe you'll see it more clearly when we connect it today. I'm a fan of Emmet Fox's 7-Day Mental Diet. I've done it several times. I'll put a link above and below to a playlist that I did, basically a mini course not too long ago about the 7-Day Mental Diet of Emmet Fox, where we really go over it in detail. And when I say we go over it in detail, I mean we basically read the whole pamphlet and go over how to do it. And then I believe that playlist includes a discussion with Cecilia at the end as well, which is nice. Otherwise, it's somewhere on here. I'll link if it's not there. My discussion with Cecilia about mental diets. Now, the reason I like the 7-Day Mental Diet as opposed to some of these other mental diet, because that's a phrase that's used a lot. Neville used the phrase a lot. Mental diet. I think it can be vague what that means. Like people say, "Oh, I'm going on a mental diet," and that's great. But what happens is a lot of the time we get confused as to what the actual mental diet is, meaning that it's too vague. Neville's got that great lecture slash essay, called Mental Diets, and he discussed mental diets a lot. But Neville doesn't really give specific instructions about how to do a mental diet, like very specific instructions in the way that Fox does. And I think when you're doing a difficult mental diet, the way Fox describes in the 7-Day Mental Diet, you want specific instructions because it's for a short period of time. And you kind of need to know that it's for a short period of time, that you're not just going to be doing this for the rest of your life. Neville implies in a lot of places, understandably so, about, taking on a new diet and making that your new lifestyle for the rest of your life, or as long as you want it to hold that state. That's a very different thing than doing a mental diet for a short period of time to see a demonstration or a manifestation in your life, to shift how you feel, in the very least, to something more more to your liking, and probably seeing external changes, manifestations in your outer world as well. So, two different things, in my opinion, really. Neville is very elegant and eloquent, talking about how, a change of your mental diet will change your state, change how you look at the world, right? And how that will change your outer reality. Fox is more talking about, in his 7-Day Mental Diet, how to, basically not be reactive in the way you usually are for a week. And by not being reactive, naturally seeing your world shake and shift. And here's the thing. The 7-Day Mental Diet's difficult, and a lot of people are reticent to try it because it's difficult. But if you're into something like active affirming or robotic affirming, Sammy Ingram style affirmations, which we've made so many videos about on this channel at this point, I'll link above to the Emile Coué playlist and a bunch of Sammy Ingram videos about, what she's talking about repeating something throughout the day, are included in that Coué playlist. Because most of Sammy's ideas, when we can trace back to Coué, even though I'm not sure at all if Sammy's aware of Coué. And if you're new to this channel, like I'm not a Sammy fanboy by any means. I see it. I don't like a lot of the stuff that she talks about. I think that she, in many ways, can be accused of being toxic with how she talks about the SP stuff. But her underlying point about repeating something over and over again is true, in my opinion. And that's something else that I found effective in my life. And I know many of you who watch this have found the effectiveness of robotic affirmations very powerful when other techniques don't seem to work. And the same can be said with the 7-day mental diet. It's a very effective technique when other techniques don't seem to work. I did a video early on in this channel basically saying if other LOA or law of assumption manifesting techniques are not working for you and you're like, is this stuff just bullshit? If you're thinking that, go on a 7-day mental diet the way Fox describes, and you'll see there's something to these teachings for sure. You will also see that, in my opinion, if you robotically affirm. I like to call it actively affirm, but it's the same thing. If you repeat something over and over again, or a few phrases over and over again, constantly, for a relatively short period of time. So what we're linking here today is, in my opinion, the fact that when you are robotically affirming or actively affirming, for hours each day, or if not hours, at least constantly, regularly checking your mind, so you're not letting negative thoughts flow in there, and you're just repeating what you want over and over again, you're on a mental diet. Active affirming, robotic affirming, the terms are synonymous for how we're using them, is mental dieting. Robotic affirming is mental dieting. You understand? It's not the 7-day mental diet in the way that Fox describes, but it is a clear form of mental dieting. Now, this is different than doing affirmations for a couple minutes, in the morning and evening, or doing an affirmation exercise the way Joseph Murphy or Neville even talks about, like when you say, isn't it wonderful, isn't it wonderful, or whatever, or it's over, thank goodness, thank you, whatever it may be, before bed for a few minutes, or maybe 10 minutes or something max. And even Sammy often talks about you can just affirm for 10 or 15 minutes a day, and that's enough to get an idea implanted. What we're talking about here with robotic affirming and active affirming is not that. It's when you are affirming for hours, basically, at least, each day. And you might not be able to sustain that kind of affirming for that long. But what, Sammy often says, and, or I think something that she often says, and like the point often is that you don't have to affirm, continuously in this way for hours and hours and hours a day for that many days to start seeing a noticeable effect in your life a lot of the time. In that way, it's very similar to the 7-day mental diet. So the two complement each other really well. Because Fox is talking about how you don't want to be reactive to your thoughts. You don't want to dwell in the negativity. And that's basically what Sammy is advocating you do as well. By affirming something you want over and over again, you're not allowing yourself to dwell in the negativity. You understand? Fox gives the example of like, if there's a fire and like a hot ember falls on your sweater, how if you knock off that ember right away, it's not going to make a hole in the sweater. But if you don't, it makes a hole. You got a hole in your sweater. He says for 7 days, you're not supposed to allow any holes in your sweater, which is not easy. In a way, it becomes easier if you're actively affirming at the same time, or alongside it, or just kind of making a fusion of the two things. Active affirming, looping something over and over again, it's mental dieting. It is mental dieting. So, when people say, You can't just repeat something over and over again and see your life change by repeating something over and over again. I completely disagree with that. The problem is, a lot of the time, even if we are affirming for, like, let's say a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening, or like when we take a walk, right? It's a lot of affirming, a lot of affirmations. Even then, what are you doing the rest of your waking hours? Are you contradicting what you're affirming? Are you negatively reacting, against what you're affirming? If you're affirming, I want to be healthy for a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening, are you thinking that you are healthy the rest of the day, or that you're getting healthier? I'm getting healthier and healthier. I'm getting better and better. You're affirming that for maybe a half an hour, maybe 2 hours a day. But your other 12, 14, 16 waking hours, are you affirming that? Or are you really thinking imaginatively in your mind, I'm not doing this. This is not working. I'm still, I still don't feel well. I'm not getting better. This is never going to work. See, if you're on a 7-day mental diet, you're not allowed to have thoughts like that. You can have the thought, I should say, but you're not allowed to dwell in it. So you have the thought and you knock it right off. You knock the ember right off your sweater. By affirming all the time, you're doing that too. So you have the thought, in the middle of the day, this isn't working. I don't feel any better. Right away, you just start affirming, I'm feeling better and better. I'm feeling better and better. This is working. I'm feeling better and better. I'm feeling better and better. You're knocking the ember off the sweater in that way too. Do you see what I'm saying? The two link up. I don't know if I'm explaining this perfectly, but I don't have to explain it perfectly. It should be clear that reactivity is really something that we are working with thought by thought, as crazy as that sounds, because we have so many thoughts a day, right? But like when you have a negative thought, what tends to happen is we start after a while to play into it, and then we play into it more. And so we lose our train of focus. We lose the new train of thought, the positive statement or affirmation we want to make, right? When you're on a 7-day mental diet, you're not allowed to do that. And when you're actively affirming or robotically affirming a lot, you're not allowed to you don't do that. Because the train of thought is always, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. So you don't go way off the rails. So what I would suggest, if you're interested in robotically affirming or interested in 7-day mental diets, is, you don't even have to spend 7 days. You can even do 2, 3, 4 days where you just affirm a ton. And it can be silently. It doesn't have to be out loud. You loop something, or you loop a couple of things, and whenever you notice yourself getting negative in your head, you just start saying your statement over and over again. Your general mood or vibe is going to change. The direction of your thought, the train of your thought is going to change, because you're not dwelling in that negativity by affirming a statement that is a positive statement over and over and over and over and over again throughout the day. And, when you're going through your day and you feel good and the negativity is not there, you don't have to affirm that. I'm not saying you have to affirm around the clock, but if you pay attention, which if you've done a 7-day mental diet, you have paid attention, you know that there's a lot of negativity that seeps in there, sneaks in there very subtly. And you're not going to allow it to sneak in there by just affirming a positive statement to counteract it. So robotic affirming is a mental diet. And it's not like an eloquent approach like Neville talks about. It's like a concrete thing. It's a statement over and over and over again, over and over again. It's very practical. Neville's advice about going on a mental diet, I don't think is his most practical advice by any means. I get what he's saying. I think it's beautiful and very helpful, but for a lot of people, it's going to be too vague. Going on a 7-day mental diet, like Fox says, or robotically affirming something so you're not allowing yourself to dwell in negativity, that's a real practical mental diet. So these two things really line up nicely. next to each other. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, it's the kind of thing that a lot of people need help with, to clarify and to like work with like subjectively while they're doing it because they think they're doing it wrong. If you need help, I'm available for coaching. You can also ask me, short questions if you want over at radicalcounselor.com. The last video I put up, I didn't mention that yet, was a clip from that conversation with Marvin, talking about the Neville community. I'll probably put up at least one more clip from our conversation just to really hammer home some of the points that Marvin and I spoke about. Because the subject of this video, the subject of most videos on this channel, are about like the nuances and the thought process or the imaginative process of making this stuff work better in your life. And the Neville community doesn't really want to talk about that stuff intelligently or openly in the way that I want to and the way that you probably want to. So, I'm going to probably put up one more video from Marvin for that reason. And maybe I'll make another video about this as well. If you've never robotically affirmed, but you've done a mental diet, a 7-day mental diet, I would really consider or just start playing around with the idea of robotically affirming some, because it really fits alongside it well. Anywho, until next time, enjoy.